This man here, and I can't remember the exact phrasing he used about how do you know God is talking to you. It reminded me of a movie I saw years ago. It was actually a play at one stage called The Ruling Class by Peter Schaffer. And Peter O'Toole played the lead role in it. And this guy is a Franciscan monk. He inherits his father's estate, a massive estate in England. He's Catholic. But he's convinced he's God. And he poses every day on an enormous cross in his living room. He lies up there, semi-naked, as Christ was, and he's just there for 3 or 4 hours a day meditating. And he's a very, an aunt who's a bit like the Maggie Smith character in Downton Abbey, a very sanguine, seen it all, heard it all character. And one day she's taken him very seriously. They all think he's completely loop, but she doesn't. She treats him anyhow, face to face, as if he's fine. And she says to him, what made you think you were God? In a conversation I had. Well, he said, I noticed that every time I knelt down to pray, I found I was talking to myself. So I hope that satisfies that man.
My own experience, exactly.
Be careful. Be careful of people who talk to themselves. Greg asked me to talk about healing a broken church, an article I wrote in the paper just in the week prior to the Eucharistic Congress. It was published on the Saturday. And what I looked at basically there was the situation where the Catholic Church is concerned in Ireland today, and the theme being that it is a divided church, and there is absolutely no doubt about that. In fact, Roger and myself were out at a book launch just this afternoon when the rest of you were at something more, I expect, productive, though this book launch was not unproductive. One man said to me there, a Catholic priest, he said, all the heretics are here. It included 2 former Church of Ireland archbishops. But he wasn't referring to those. He was talking about people like Father Tony Flannery, Father Sean Fagan. God, I can't remember them all. All these men who have been silenced were there for the launch of Mary Macaluse's new book on the Code of Canon Law. And she gave a magnificent address. And she's really putting it up to those guys in Rome. But are symptomatic in one context of the more general problem being faced by the Catholic Church today, which is a deeply divided institution between a fossilized leadership, who's very much cowed today. In fact, they're almost silenced, our bishops today, Catholic bishops that is, and an increasingly restless, educated laity at that next level, and at a younger level, a complete indifference. And in fact, where that younger level is concerned, the complete indifference factor is not peculiar to the Catholic Church. It's a feature of all Christian denominations in Ireland today. You go into any Christian denomination on a Sunday, and apart from the evangelicals and those concentrating around immigrant groups, you'll see that the demographic is old, middle-aged, and up above that. But this looked at the situation just to be specific about the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church today, its priests, their average age is 64. In this Archdiocese of Dublin, within 8 years, there'll be barely 1 priest per parish. Now, as the Americans say, they're 64, 8 years, average figure goes up. You do the math, as the Americans say, or as David McWilliams might have said. They are facing a huge personnel crisis. They have started ordaining permanent deacons. The period to train them is about 3 to 4 years. But again, Archbishop Martin ordained 8 of those men, and they're only men. They're about last May, and they were all of the same age category, except for one man, as the priests that they're going to be helping. Not only that, in terms of pure personnel, mass attendance is down. I said to you earlier on how it's down as low as 11% in Dublin. Nationally, the figure ranges between 33 and 35%, depending on which polls you talk to. But the beliefs of Irish Catholics are very unclear. There was a survey done for the Association of Catholic Priests by a Morocc last February, and it found that where 75% of Irish Catholics were concerned, the Church's teachings on sexuality had no relevance at all. 87% of them believed priests should marry, and 77% of them believed there should be women priests. Now that is an extreme position compared to the official position of the Catholic Church in Ireland, and it just further illustrates the level of division involved. I mean, in the Protestant denominations, well, certainly in the Church of Ireland, you have women priests. You don't have celibate clergy. If you do, it's by choice, not by imposition. And you would imagine that in that context, that the Church of Ireland would be much more attractive for Catholics than Irish Catholics than is the case today. Fine, there are some people who have moved over to the Church of Ireland a lot of priests have moved over into the Church of Ireland. For instance, the current Dean of Christ Church is a former Catholic priest. They don't make a big deal about this. It's all done very subtly. But there's no drift, no massive drift of Irish Catholics who think, like a lot of Irish Anglicans, towards the Church of Ireland or towards the Presbyterian. In fact, the Presbyterian figures are quite static and have been for the last number of years. But what is happening is people are just drifting away full stop from faith. And of course, I said to you again earlier on, one issue that's beginning to dominate in the Anglican communion worldwide, and indeed now here in Ireland too, which will put off particularly young people, is this endless row or divisions over the issue of gay clergy and homosexuality. In a country where it was decriminalised 20 years ago next year, in 1993. For young people, it's not an issue and hasn't been an issue. And as I said last night, it was an issue on the Craig Doyle show. They had 3 guys from a gay soccer team. The most committed guy couldn't be there because he's a teacher, and he teaches in a church-run school, and under a derogation allowed to the Irish government from EU equality legislation, they can legally discriminate against gay people. And I mean, I think personally that is outrageous and will be found to be so in time. But it also, my point of bringing it up at all is that it alienates young Irish people from getting involved in that issue. And people, I mean, they associate religion not with inclusivity, and I'm speaking generally now, not with inclusivity, not with all-embracing, not with being out there reaching out compassionately to the marginalised, and gays are marginalised, or women, even though the majority, they're marginalised. And I mean, it's the religion in general, and I suppose the churches in Ireland in particular, don't seem to be a very attractive place for a lot of young people. What did attract young people to them in the past were projects like, where's Graham's project there, Solace, getting out there, doing it, going out helping the homeless, work like the Simon community, fighting for justice, which is what I suppose animated a lot of people in the 70s and 80s in their fight, if you like, to liberalise Irish law on divorce, the availability of contraception, in the teeth of opposition, and indeed to a degree abortion law in Ireland, in the teeth of opposition from particularly the main church in Ireland itself, to seen as basically trying to make Ireland a warmer place for young, modern, practicing Catholics in the area of sexuality. And yet it is a fact that churches seem to be obsessed by sex. It just absolutely, and I'm not saying that in a humorous fashion. It never ceases to amaze me how obsessed the institutions are, and particularly the Catholic Church, with issues of sexuality. When Jesus Christ, if you look at your Bible, really didn't have very much to say about sex. He had nothing to say about homosexuality. He commented about the woman caught in adultery. He just said that him, and he did say him, without sin cast the first stone. And he went to her protection and told her to go off and don't sin again. That was it. His whole mission was about helping people, helping their physically, I mean, through corporal works of mercy, as they're known in the Catholic tradition, just actively getting out there and making life better and easier for people, helping those who are suffering. That story of the woman caught in adultery reminds me of a joke, which probably is not appropriate, but...
Go on. Go on, then.
Jesus comes on the crowd surrounding the woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. Very foolish lady. And they're there with their stones. They're going ping, 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 stones at her. And he comes out, gets in the middle of it. Stand back. Let him that is without sin cast the first stone. And there's complete silence. And all of a sudden, this little lady comes, stone in her hands, goes ping at the woman caught in adultery, retreats back into the crowd, and Jesus turns to her and says, "Mother, sometimes you make me sick." Actually, I don't believe it's true. So, I mean, you're talking about in Ireland today, where the major church is concerned, and indeed the other churches too, is a sort of an institutional fossilization that has become so rigid that it cannot adapt or adjust to the demands of the times. It can't read the signs of the times, take on board the insights of the times, and I mean, I can't see where it's going future-wise. I mean, listening to Mary McAleese, almost single-handedly, she intends to demolish a lot of the obstacles, as she called them, in her own tradition, one of those being canon law and governance in the church itself, the Catholic Church, that is. Where the future lies for Christianity in Ireland, I really do not know. It is a major, major problem. It's facing into a very difficult future. Most people are nominally Christian today in Ireland. I'm not saying they're unchristian in their behaviour, they're not. I mean, live in I think most people are very humane in the main in this country, although I was talking to a man there during the break who insists that it's a dog-eat-dog where Irishmen are concerned. But I think that we live in a generally quite a humane and civil society. And I think that the church is mounting this war on secularism is also misplaced. I think that what they should be doing is, because secularist outlook in the main is coming from a humanist position, which is very much rooted in the Judeo-Christian tradition and has the same attitudes, if you like. It's essentially about love your neighbour, looking after your neighbour. It doesn't regard or pay much attention to the first commandment, if you like, love God, whatever, love as yourself. Its concentration is on this world and making the world a better place. That's for most people in this society today. So really, I don't have an awful lot to offer you in terms of the future. I'm just putting the situation to you there, that we are dealing with a situation of institutional crisis where all the churches are concerned. They all have difficulty in attracting young people into their midst, or into practices, certainly. I think the way to reach young people now, as before, is to get involved in justice issues, looking after the homeless, looking after the afflicted in our society, doing what one of our famous editors, Douglas Gage, we said should be the work of a journalist, comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable in the interest of justice, comforting the afflicted to lessen suffering. Thank you.